Hey everyone, here's one of my favorite builds in Baldur's Gate 3. It's a Fire Vengeance Paladin Sorcerer multiclass, which uses the Flame Blade, which we can get a permanent copy of, which will deal a 5d6 of fire damage. And on top of that, we can actually make multiple of these. I'll link in the description how to do this. And what's great about this is the Pyro Quickness hat allows us to do a fire spell, get an extra bonus action so we can attack with our offhand, which deals quite a bit of damage here. And on top of all of that, the Sorcerer has a lot of synergy too. Now, starting off, I think that the Sorcerer has the better start. They'll also get Constitution saving throw proficiency, which you'd get Wisdom saving throw proficiency if you start with the Paladin. The Paladin will also get heavy armor, where the Sorcerer only gets medium armor, but I think medium is more than alright for this build, because we're going to use the Draconic Bloodline here, which gives us a lot of tankiness in the early game and additional health points. The reason we're doing this is we can empower our fire spells later on. Now, we want to have Booming Blade. It's just a fantastic cantrip. Also, Friends is great if you're the face of the party. If not, we can take Shocking Grasp. We also want to have Mage Hand. We can drop our Grease Bottles as a free action and use Mage Hand to throw them. And then also Firebolt's nice just to explode things. We also want to take the Magic Missile for guaranteed damage and the Shield spell, the Draconic Bloodline there. And you can go with the Fire Draconic Bloodline with Burning Hands here. There is also the choice to take Disguise Self if you want to use some of the Githyanki weapons. And you can actually use the Githyanki weapons and then swap off and keep all the benefits as long as you don't unequip the weapon. Now, what we'll also be taking is, if you have the Hags here, take your Charisma up to 17. I like to go with 16 in our Dexterity, because we can actually get a very high armor class while wearing medium armor. And a stat spread of something like this works well. Alternatively, you can swap Dex and Constitution. Upon hitting level 2, Thunderwave is also a nice one for the pushback. If you want a true fire spell, Chromatic Orb is the only really fire option here. But I think it's good to have Thunderwave just in the odd chance you can push someone off of a ledge. Now, Extended Spell is really good here, because this will double the duration of conditions, summons, and surfaces caused by spells. What's crazy about this is if we use this and can proc it on a spell, we can actually boost our... If we have geared that procs conditions, they'll actually double them. So if you have things like Arcane Acuity, you can get double the benefits. Now, where this becomes even crazier is Extended Spell can work on the Paladin spell Command. This means you can get a command for 2 turns for 1 sorcery point, and it's upcastable. It's actually insane how powerful that is. We're going to be taking that. Twin Spell is nice too, because you can use this on haste later on, but I don't think it fits on this build as well as Distance Spell, which increases the range of our spells by 50%. So those two are the best choices. Distance Spell being so nice because sometimes you just have no other options to hit people than to spend a sorcery point, and that's what they're there for. Now, Shadow Blade obviously is a strong spell, but not obviously thematic here. I might do a psychic version of this in the future. We're going to take Scorching Ray. We got our Flame Blade there, obviously, for close range. And the Flame Blade isn't really something that's part of the spell list, but we're going to get it. I'll, again, link that in the description. And Scorching Ray being a very powerful spell. We also don't have to use this. We can use something else in the offhand, which we'll get to a bit later. But yeah, Scorching Ray, really strong. And then Quicken Spell, because a bonus action spell is very powerful. That concludes our meta magic. So honestly, the best 3 choices, I would say, for this build. Extended Spell and Command is just absurdly powerful. We get another cantrip here. Now, at this point, there's nothing really super necessary. Like Minor Illusion can be great because you can group enemies together for a fireball, or Bone Chill, because this is going to stop targets from receiving heals, and that's very important in Act 2. Now, at this point, hold person, because what we're going to do for damage is hold person into command, or hold person into Scorching Ray, which will get free crits off on the damage. And then if you don't want a concentration, you can then use command on the other targets. So we got lots of coverage here. And also for the feat, I would recommend either Alert for the +5 initiative or Charisma increase. At this point, I do think Alert is a little bit better, just because sorcerers can clean up on turn 1, and that's something we want to do. Level 5 gives us Counterspell and Fireball. Big decisions to make. I personally lean towards Counterspell being the better choice for protective reasons, and that's kind of what a Sorcerer Paladin should do. However, fun rules all, and Fireball can be a good choice as well. Because especially here at level 6, we get our ability to add our Charisma modifier to the damage we deal. Scorching Ray, Stonks went up. Also, this gives us the ability to take a resistance to an elemental damage type that we cast. That's kind of nice too. We'll also take Counterspell here, and one thing I love to do is, since we likely aren't going to use Thunderwave too much, we can take that off and take Lightning Bolt or Haste. A lot of people like Haste, but I don't love to have it on a Paladin, even though they have the boost of saving throws. I think it's good to have a straight line attack like Lightning Bolt, which we don't have much AoE outside of that. Now, level 7, we're going to then take in the Paladin. This is where we're going to go with the Vengeance, the Burning Vengeance. Might I add, we got the Inquisitor's Might. Radiant damage burns the enemies and possibly dazes them. If a target's dazed, they have disadvantage on Wisdom saves. Command and hold person are more likely to land. This is a bonus action, so we like that. Because we'll also get a way to get some more bonus actions. Talk about that in the gear section. But level 2, Divine Smite. We now do Fire and Radiant. That is burning. And also, if there's undead, they take an additional 1d8 of radiant damage. I think defense is going to be the best choice here. +1 armor class is good if we're spellcasting. It's good if we're in melee range. You can go with dueling if you want to add 2 damage and use a shield. But I think that defense just fits all situations perfectly. Now, command, as mentioned, 1 turn, but extended spell from the sorcerer makes that 2 turns. Absurd. It's very strong. Also, Searing Smite is really great because this eats your action, bonus action, a spell slot, and a concentration, but it's extra fire damage. I don't recommend using this, though. Divine Smite is way better. It's just a funny, thematic one. I think it looks cool, though. It gives you cool fiery VFX. Thunderous Smite, you can give a big pushback. This is nice because you can knock enemies prone, but again, we're not going to be using these too much. And Divine Favor is there just for a bit of extra radiant damage. A 1d4 radiant on top of all of our attacks. And here's where this build becomes nuts, because Vow of Enmity gives us advantage on all attack rolls. We can apply this to ourselves, and they haven't changed this as a patch 8, which is nuts. So I'm expecting this to always be the case. Apply it on yourself, advantage on your Scorching Ray. Boom, boom, it's crazy. Abjure Enemies, not even worth using. Hunter's Mark is nice, though, because this is a fire Hunter's Mark with our weapon. And on top of all that, this is something if we're hitting an enemy multiple times, we can have Divine Favor, or this. Hunter's Mark is a little bit better in most situations, but yeah, it's nice to have both options. Now, Bless, I guess, will be the option there, because Bless is a good cantrip, or a good spell to have. Level 4 gives us our second feat, and at this point, we can go with the Charisma increase or Dex increase. And I guess the best way to probably be is drop Strength into a Strength potion here. Getting Charisma for more damage or spellcasting damage is nice. But I also like to take the Savage Attacker because it depends at this point. If you're spellcasting, getting the Draconic Sorcerer subclass feature to add more Charisma onto your Scorching Rays adds 1 more point of damage each. That's nice. I do think Savage Attacker is better in 99% of the cases because this rerolls our Divine Smites and our melee attacks, which we do 5d6 of fire damage. We got a lot of rerolls there. That's going to boost our DPS quite a bit, and it's worth taking. At level 5 here, this is when we become overpowered. I should mention that you can take off from the Sorcerer, hold person, because you're going to get this from the Paladin. Extra attack now. Very good. And also, we get level 2 spells, so we can take things like our Branding Smite. If you go against an invisible enemy, this is a big help. Also, Aid is a good spell. This gives you additional max health points. Now, this is where we got an option between being more offensive. We're going to get level 5 spell slot either way. This will give our Charisma modifier to saving throws in a 3-meter radius. Now, 3 meters is not very large. You can try this around to see how large and how many of your teammates you'll oftentimes protect. If you have the level 13 to 20 mod, you can actually get this even further, but I like to take this for an extra sorcery point. We still keep the same spellcasting progression. We get 1 less health point, but it's better because the Draconic does give a bit of extra health. And then this lets us take Wall of Fire, which is an amazing spell. I love Ice Storm. I think this is the best level 4 spell. But if we want to feel thematic to fire, Wall of Fire. Honestly, there's nothing better than being able to drop a 5d8 fire damage spell in an area and just let the enemies rip themselves apart using that. So this also lets us take off the Hold Person, which we just got from the Paladin, and then throw on like Ice Storm if you really want it. Lightning Bolt is being a good spell as well for the huge area of effect. I'm now realizing that we weren't able to grab Lightning Bolt for whatever reason there. So Lightning Bolt would probably be the best choice. I just like the services from Ice Storm, but we're going to go Lightning Burns in a sense. Yeah, I should have had Lightning Bolt and both those spells for some reason unequipped it. Also, this outfit is the Luna and Umbra outfit on Nexus mods by Aridea. And this build actually has a lot of really good gear. Again, if you want to get a Flame Blade, I'll post a guide in the comments and in the description because you got a lot of damage with this. You don't need to use this though. You can honestly use Father Alluve. You could even use the Drake Throat Glaive with the fire buff on it because it has the elemental weapon. That's a fun one, a glaive two-hander. Knife of the Undermountain King for early game weapons. There's a lot of good choices. Even the Flail of the Ages and taking the Fire Age to apply burning on enemies is good. As for helmets, the Pyro Quickness hat works fantastic here because we can get ourselves that extra offhand attack. When we deal fire damage with a leveled spell, you burn yourself and gain an additional bonus action this round. That is really nice because that bonus action means we can do an offhand attack, and you see there, it does upwards of 40 damage. It's pretty crazy. We also got the Cloak of Protection here, which gives us a +1 to our armor class. And the Potent Robe is a good one in the early game because this will add your cantrips doing additional charisma modifier damage, +1 armor class. However, into the later game, the better options would be to go with the Armor of Agility, which gives us a 22 armor class. We can't use Armor Persistence unless we start with the, if we start with the Paladin. And one thing I want to mention, this is one build that actually uses the Heldusk armor really well because you are not able to get burned, and you can burn the enemy if you succeed a saving throw. So this makes the most sense thematically on this. But the other thing is it makes you immune to the burning from Pyro Quickness Hat, so we don't lose our concentration on Wall of Fire. That's why I'm going to go with this. I don't like to use this in builds. Just it does feel a bit overpowered. You can get it in Act 1. But yeah, even Protecting Sparks Wall is the Act 1 best armor for this build, in all honesty, and then the Potent Robe, and then this in Act 3, or the Armor of Agility. And Hellas Gloves. This gives us an additional 1d6 fire damage and a booster spell save DC. Again, I'm only using this because it fits perfectly thematically. In the early game, you can go with the Gloves of the Belligerent Skies. There's a decent choice. Even the Gemini Gloves to be able to twin cast is really nice. It's not popping up there for me. And Luminous Gloves for radiant damage applying radiating orbs, also pretty useful. And if you got the Illithid ability drain, the Boots of Stormy Clamor is great because when you apply a condition, we apply Reverberation, which is a great way to knock them prone. Although we could go with the Cinder Shoes. Whenever you burn an enemy, you get 2 turns of heat. So yeah, it just depends how you want to synergize with your other setups, but that can be kind of fun as well. Now, the Shadow Cloak Ring's cool because if you're in a lightly obscured area, this gives you a 1d4 of extra fire damage. So yeah, if we want to stack up our damage as high as possible. I also like this one here. Whenever you deal spell damage while illuminated by a light source, we afflict radiating orbs on the targets for 2 turns. That's pretty nice because then this will proc our Boots of Stormy Clamor. I also have the Strange Conduit Ring. When we hold a concentration on Wall of Fire, we get an additional 1d4 of psychic damage. But honestly, we could go with the +2 radiant damage and then go with this here, giving radiating orbs. It's lighting it up. Lights burn. Burning means fire, in a sense. Something's burning. That's my rationale. I like these 2 rings. They're very powerful and good on a sorcerer. Also good on like this multi-class. But yeah, you could also use the other rings. Even Crusher's Ring for the movement speed's good in the early game. Ring of Arcane Synergy will give you a charisma modifier on melee attacks after using Booming Blade. Ring of Free Action to move around freely. Very good item, actually. And then we also got the Hellrider Longbow for the +3 to our initiative. You can add fire damage on top of it even further if you were to use like the Drake Throat Glaive and have someone in your teammate be able to apply that. And the Perioptic Wound Closure is another good one here. This will max roll your heals or the Aim of the Greater Health just to be able to give us the maximum amount of survivability. Now, I like to use the dual blades, but you can use a shield in your offhand too as well. I just like getting the extra fire. If we cast a fire spell, we get an extra offhand attack and kind of cool synergy. And what's funny is you'll actually hold out the flame blades at all times. It's kind of weird, but yeah, it's a thing that happens. Don't be alarmed. It kind of looks cool, actually. We rolled a 13 initiative, so we're going first. Now, what is awesome about this is that Pyro Quickness Hat. This means that we can set up with a Wall of Fire, but still get our extra attack. Now, the thing is with Wall of Fire, you got to find the most advantageous position that you can hit as many people as possible, but also you got to think about the future of where the enemies are moving. So this is why if you can lay this down in like a diagonal area where you know enemies have to move to find you, that's optimal. I think this is a good spot here. There's 4 enemies and everyone's going to have to cross through this in order to. They actually fill the counter spell there. But yeah, we got fire damage off on pretty much all the targets. We were able to take out one of them. And now we have this here, which is going to cut the combat area in half. One thing I forgot to mention is Helldust Boots. I was trying not to use this too much, but Hellcrawler actually triggers for free off the Power Quickness Hat. It was a little weird that Wall of Fire didn't actually trigger properly, but we can also drop fire spells. That's another thing is Fireball, huge area of effect, so we can get really lucky and then just drop that in a area like that and take out multiple targets at a time. Now we got our bonus action there, so yippee, that's what we wanted. Now, we're in a little bit of a pickle here because I didn't really do a great job of sectioning this off, but yeah, they're going to have to deal with movement at some point to be able to hit us. I just have an offhand attack, so kind of screwed myself over here, having to run through the fire. Immune to burning though, so we don't take the damage. And then go ahead with the offhand attack there. Boom, 51 on a critical hit, and that gets re-rolled too, which is absolutely absurd. I guess, yeah, since we're immune to fire burning, we can just sit at the edge of it here and tempt enemies into running into it. And since we have another bonus action, I can't make it back there to attack them all. This is where a Vow of Enmity on ourselves means that we're now a very good archer, one of the best archers in the game, as funny as that sounds. And then we'll just let them all take the radiating orbs and burning fire damage from that as they move through it. Now, I always save Counterspell for moments like this where we need to stop a command from happening because, yeah, that's probably the most devastating spell alongside Hold Person. I would save Shield, the reaction, for being able to do that because sometimes you just need that really bad. And here's where the synergy comes together. Extended Spell, Command, Approach, and Upcasted. 4 targets. 65%, I should have, if you have the Fire Acuity hat on, you have a much higher chance. 30%, that's not happening. But boom, we landed 3 of those. and this target's now my target. And the best part about that is, since we have Vow of Enmity, we are launching all these attacks with advantage. And furthermore to that, using Scorching Ray is going to give us a multi-hit with Radiating Orbs. I wouldn't mind using the level 4 spell slot for this just to ensure that we get enough of these to hit. Boom, boom, boom. It was enough to take them out. Otherwise, they had a -10 to their attack rolls. Now we got to line ourselves up so that we got them running into the fire here. And yeah, we can just skip turns. I had bonus actions there to use. They took the fire and died. And then this target ran through it here. And the beauty about this is we got extended spell command. So guess what? They're still approaching us. So yeah, even though we have a full-on turn here that we could use, I'm just going to use a little firebolt on one of them here to chip down the damage a bit. That actually may take them out. Yeah, it did. I can just end my turn, and he's just going to run into the fire and end his. So yeah, extended spell command, one of the craziest things, making them run into a wall of fire, even crazier. All the fire damage spells, the extra bonus action. Had a fire cutie, I think I mentioned it, but that's a really good item to throw on here as well for boosted spell save DC. Very fun, thematic, one of my favorites, similar to a build that I did my entire first run with, Fiend. I'll likely be doing a different build similar to that, but yeah, fire damage rules, even though ice and lightning is much better. Hit the subscribe button below if you enjoyed. I hope you guys all have a great day. We'll catch y'all in the next one.